Welcome and congratulations on entering the inner circle of senior living. The Inner Circle discusses relevant topics in senior living investment, operations, financing, and beyond to drive the industry to the next level. With a continually changing environment, let's start the collaboration now.
Hey guys, and welcome to the Inner Circle of Senior Living. I am your host, Scott McCorvie, and I am so excited that you have joined for this very first episode. This has been in my brain for years, bouncing around there, different concepts and ideas. So I am very excited to finally put this in action. I knew with the new year it was time, and also, we're at kind of a turning point in the senior living industry. So I knew it was time to put this into action, to produce and create this show. And that's really what this is all about. So why the name Inner Circle? I know it sounds exclusive. I know it sounds VIP, but really I want it to be inclusive. I want it to be a collaboration. I want it to be a place that we can come together, different professionals that share the same love and passion for senior living, that we can come together, that we can bounce ideas off each other, we can share from our prior experiences, and we can just help share the knowledge. Overall, I love learning from different people, so it's having the opportunity to learn from different industry folks that really have expertise in different areas of senior living, so that we can come together and help enhance the industry and help enhance each other as we move forward into senior living. So that's really what the Inner Circle is all about. And the show's going to be formatted in a few different ways. First is going to be discussion. So I've been fortunate enough to be in senior living for about 15 years now. And I've learned a lot through trial and error, just past experiences. And I want to share that knowledge with you. So that's going to be the first kind of format of the show. I've got about 3 pages worth of topics that I sat down and brainstormed of different areas of senior living, primarily on the investment side, but operations and asset management and financing and all sorts of stuff. So that's the first format, is going to be sharing some of that knowledge with you. The second format is going to be interviews. So there's a lot of great, passionate senior living professionals out there, and I'm going to reach out to them and just pick their brain and just, interview them so they can share their knowledge. I know there's different formats sometimes on, we all get the same email blasts and monthly and quarterly publications, and occasionally there's an interview there. But what I want to do is have real-time interviews that you can hear the passion from their voice, and hopefully that kind of reflects onto you. The other format is I really want this to be a collaboration, because that's what the Inner Circle is all about. It's about coming together and sharing ideas. So either, sending the show emails or through different social media platforms, and I'll talk about those later, or the LinkedIn group. I'm going to be posting different questions or theories or topics, but I really want us to be interactive and to share our knowledge and to bounce ideas off each other. So that's going to be a huge part of the show too. So through discussion, interviews, and collaboration, that's really what's going to be, making up the Inner Circle of senior living going forward. I guess first, kind of share a little bit about myself. So I have a strong passion for senior living. If you talk to me, you'll find that pretty quickly. I was lucky enough to specialize in the industry early in my career. So I've been fortunate enough to be in here for about 15 years. Started with an undergraduate degree from the Florida State University, had a double major in real estate and marketing, and wasn't exactly sure. I knew I wanted to do commercial real estate, wasn't really sure which avenue of that I wanted to take. During that time, a group called Health Trust, if you're familiar with them, they are a consulting group, but primarily appraisals, market study, feasibility reports. Majority of it is appraisals, specialized in senior living, and they also do some healthcare as well. They were just separating from PricewaterhouseCoopers and were looking to kind of vamp up their team. So they had a few alumni from Florida State Real Estate School. So when I was actively searching for a new opportunity, interviewed with them. And at first I wasn't too certain about healthcare. It wasn't exactly in my radar as far as what I wanted to do. But once I started to think about the specialization, started to think about the demographics, I knew it was the way I wanted to go. So I ended up going down and moving to Sarasota, Florida, worked with Health Trust, initially doing a lot of research. So doing a lot of supply and demand analysis, doing a lot of competitive analysis, doing a lot of zoning and building code research. A lot of that goes into appraisals. But really, when I did my first few site visits is when I really found my passion for senior living. I saw what an impact a community can make on the residents' lives, the satisfaction, and then the families. When I walked around, I think it was my third site visit, I saw a couple of families just having lunch with their loved one, with their relative, and I realized this is real estate, but this is so much more. So that's really where I developed my passion. I ended up being with Health Trust for about 8 years. So in Sarasota, Florida, I moved out to Portland, Oregon. So I'd been a Florida boy my whole life. It was definitely strange packing up my bags and moving across the country, but I'm glad I did. I really learned a lot. I primarily did the West Coast there in Portland, Oregon. So I was in California a ton. I was in the Seattle area a lot. But really, that's where I honed in on my financial analysis skills. So, part of the appraisal is developing what's called the income approach, or projecting the financials going forward, what an investor might do, when they're looking to purchase this. So digging into the financials, I was really able to get a solid understanding on different operators, different staffing levels, efficient expenses, efficient revenues, efficient staffing levels, and just really what provides an operational maximum performance for a senior living community. Also toured hundreds of different senior living communities across the country, but especially there on the West Coast. And that gave me great experience on what really works as far as the real estate itself, site selection, surrounding uses of a senior living community, building design, what amenities are used and which ones aren't, staff engagement, how crucial that is. I can tell, almost immediately by interacting with an executive director or marketing director, how engaged they are. And that's a direct correlation to the performance. So, if I'm interacting with staff, I know primarily what their occupancy is in the past and what it is in the future. So really good experience there with Health Trust. Was in Portland there for a number of years, ended up moving down to San Diego, California, which was the complete opposite, went from raining every day to never raining at all. And then moved back to Orlando in 2011. Wanted to get into stay in senior living, but I wanted to get on the investment side. What just happened that a group called Centio Investments were just rebranding a public non-traded REIT. So it's a public company, non-traded, meaning it's a real estate investment trust, but it's not listed or traded on a daily basis on any exchange, but it still has a REIT status. So it's still shareholders investing money. That money is invested into real estate, and then that cash is distributed back through a distribution. So worked with Centio Investments. They were advisor to the Centio Healthcare Property REIT, and had a great experience with them. Really did a ton of different stuff there. Did a lot of asset management. So I created a asset management platform so we could track the revenue and expenses on a monthly basis and compare that to underwriting and budget, and really break that down on a per resident day and per occupied unit basis so we can compare communities property to property, and then compare it to overall regional statistics. Also worked on a lot of acquisitions. So every acquisition, is you have to do some full underwriting. So basically, projecting the financial performance going forward, and did a lot of that. A lot of underwriting on different investment opportunities, either acquisitions or joint ventures or development opportunities. Also worked on sourcing the debt. So, we put property level debt on almost all the new investments. So worked with the different debt providers and helping provide the information and get that process moving. Overall, had a great experience. You probably heard Centio Healthcare Properties ended up selling to Kane Anderson last year, but got a ton of respect for those guys, and had a great experience there and learned a lot. Another public non-traded REIT here in Orlando, that's where I'm based out of, called CNL Healthcare Properties. They reached out to see if I would help them. So I joined their group in 2014. They were raising a ton of money and they needed help structuring underwriting and closing different opportunities, primarily senior living, but also medical office. So worked with them, had a great opportunity to be their vice president of acquisitions, and learned a lot from the different executives there at CNL. It's a big company, and so it went from like doing everything at Cintio to just doing acquisitions at CNL. Did everything from kind of sizing up a deal to writing the LOI to bringing it all the way through closing. They were raising a ton of capital, so was able to work on a lot of different deals and gain a lot of great experience. So got a lot of respect for those guys in that organization. In 2017, decided that it was time to start my own consulting company. And so that's what I did. I launched Senior Living Growth Advisors. If you want to check out the website, it's srgrowth.com. That's SR like senior growth.com. So this consulting company really let me hone in on my passion. Allowed me to work on a lot of different avenues of stuff that I was excited about. And really it came down to a few different things. One being, I talked with a lot of developers that might have a lot of development experience, but more on the multifamily side. They want to get into senior living, but they quickly realize how different it is from any other real estate class. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, but it's so operationally focused that they don't have that experience. So at my prior roles, I couldn't really help them out, but now my Senior Living Growth Advisors, I have the opportunity to work with these different developers. They might have a great site, great design, but they just need help navigating those final stages to, start construction on these development projects. Also, is getting a lot of calls from either family offices, private equity, whatnot, that are interested into senior living investment through new acquisitions or development opportunities. But again, they realize that it's not like any other real estate class, and they need help with someone that really has that senior living operational experience. And so that's gave me the opportunity to be able to work with groups like that. Also, talking with a lot of operators, a lot of them want to grow their platform through joint ventures, through management agreements, through leases, through new development opportunities. But a lot of operators, and I totally understand, they're so busy with day-to-day management. I mean, there's so much that goes into operating these properties that they don't really have the time or experience for to work on new investments. So it gave me the opportunity and the platform to be able to work with groups like that too. And so launched that in 2017. It's been an amazing experience. And that's really where I'm at today. I figured what I'll do in this episode so that we're all on the same page is give kind of a quick summary, a quick introduction of senior living, talk about the different product types, then talk a little bit about the history of senior living, because, to kind of go into the future, we really need to understand the past. So let's take a quick break, and then we'll be back and talk a little bit more about the different product types in senior living and the history. So we're all on the same page going forward for different shows. So be back in a few minutes. This episode is brought to you by Senior Living Growth Advisors. Senior Living Growth Advisors can help you with the full spectrum of the investment and operation process. Whether it's structuring and closing new acquisitions, finalizing a development opportunity, accessing the specialized capital markets, implementing prudent asset management procedures, or just improving the operational efficiency of a community, let Senior Living Growth Advisors leverage years of experience and industry relationships to bring you to the next level. Visit srgrowth.com to learn more on how you can achieve your desired growth success. That's www.srgrowth.com. Hey guys, welcome back to the Inner Circle of Senior Living. I'm your host, Scott McCorvie, and let's dive into senior living product. I know a lot of you have probably been around the industry for a long time and you understand the different product types, but there's also a lot of new entrants into senior living. So I want to make sure that we're all on the same page, that we all have the same kind of base level foundation when we talk about different subjects. You know what I'm referring to when I talk to the different product types. So I'm going to start from the lowest acuity going up to the highest acuity. So the first product would be age-restricted senior apartments. This is really, basically just apartments that have a restriction on age. So you won't have families or, college kids in there throwing keg parties. It's just dedicated just for seniors. There's really not many amenities. You have your apartment, you have your maintenance and your grounds maintenance taken care of. You typically have a clubhouse with some activities there, but you're not going to have a dedicated activities director or anything like that. You might have some dances or whatnot put on by, an internal organization in the senior or in the age-restricted apartment. But you're not going to have, any of the typical senior living amenities. It's primarily just an apartment. However, you don't have to worry about your neighbors throwing crazy parties because, well, they might, but everyone is within a certain age group. So that's the first product type, is seniors apartments or age-restricted apartments. Going up from there is independent living, sometimes called retirement living. But this is basically, it's you have your apartment. However, you also have other amenities like housekeeping, like dining, like dedicated activities, all on site. So it's really a step up from the apartments. It's more of a community aspect. However, you're not provided any in-house nursing care. A lot of times, though, there's outpatient healthcare that offers services through independent living. But the thing that differentiates it from assisted is there's no in-house care. Also, independent living isn't typically licensed by the state healthcare organization. So there's no dedicated nursing, medication management, things like that for independent living. It's also you usually have a full kitchen in there. Even though there's dining services, you have the opportunity to cook your meals in your unit itself. But the biggest difference between independent and assisted is the nursing care. So I guess that's the next thing, is assisted living. Very similar to independent living as far as you have dining services, you have housekeeping, you have all your maintenance, you have your activities. However, you also have the option for nursing care, for medication management. And there's different pricing structures that go into how that, additional care is charged. It's either all-inclusive, a level of care system, which is, basically how much care you need, correlates to a pricing metrics. Or a lot of times it's a point system. So they'll do an evaluation on what your loved one, what they need as far as, we call it ADLs, or activities of daily living, what kind of assistance they need on a daily basis. Is it, bathing, helping brush your teeth, getting dressed in the morning, go to the dining room, a lot of different, ADLs that we experience every day. So with the point system is they do an evaluation typically on a quarterly basis, and that points correlates to a pricing value, which correlates to what you pay per month. So assisted living primarily is independent living plus nursing care. Additionally, it's licensed by the state. There's different organizations that license it, and they can provide the nursing care. There's typically a registered nurse as far as other nursing staff on site that are providing the care. Also, there's medication management. So those are all things that go into assisted living. When you start to have more impairment, cognitive impairment as far as Alzheimer's, the next product is memory care. Memory care is also sometimes called dementia care, sometimes called Alzheimer's care, all the same product type. I like to use memory care. But this basically is assisted living, only it's usually in a secured unit because there's wandering management that goes into the Alzheimer's. So it's a secured unit. There's typically dedicated activities, dedicated nursing. There's usually specialized amenities for the memory care, being a serving kitchen, a dining room, activity room, cognitive stations that help try to maintain or repair the cognitive function. Also, usually an enclosed courtyard that might have an enclosed walking path. So those are all things that go into memory care. Price point is higher because there's a lot more specialized care. Additionally, there's a lot more companion or semi-private units in memory care because the pricing gets pretty high, and the residents a lot of times aren't in their unit. They're out and doing activities in the common area. From memory care, the most, the highest acuity of the senior living product is skilled nursing facilities. This is also the oldest product. A lot of these, you'll notice, were built in the 1970s and 1980s. Skilled nursing is also primarily federally funded, so mostly CMS as far as Medicaid and Medicare reimbursement. Very little private pay, a little bit of HMO, a little bit of VA, primarily Medicaid and some Medicare is what makes up the census of skilled nursing. I'm going to lump this into, I'm just going to call this post-acute, because along with skilled nursing, or SNFs, as people say, there's also IRFs, there's TRFs. I guess TRFs, the transitional rehab facility, is the newest product type in senior living. And this product type is all Medicare based. So it's all short term, 60 days or less. Think of rehabbing from a hip surgery. A hospital is much more likely to discharge you, especially with the new regulations. They're much more likely to discharge you into a facility that's specialized in the short term rehab, so they don't have readmissions and get penalized with their reimbursement. So those are really the main products. There's also, I'll refer to this a lot of times as the continuum of care. Basically, what I'm referring to is you have at least two of these product types. It could be independent living and assisted living. It could be assisted living and memory care. It could be the full spectrum as far as independent, assisted, memory care. I refer to that as the continuum of care. So that means you have at least two of the product types in senior living. You could have all three, you could have more. Usually when you have independent, assisted, memory care, and skilled nursing, you have what's called a CCRC. That stands for Continuum Care Retirement Community. And these are usually huge campuses that provide the full continuum. So we're talking, it could be 20 years of a resident's life. And they primarily come into two categories. There's rental CCRCs, which you just pay a monthly rent each month and to have your unit in the care that you need. There's also an entrance fee model. And the way this works is you put a large entrance fee when you first move in, and then you get a percentage of that typically refunded back. And there's different contract types that correlate to different monthly rents. But usually you put in a large entrance fee. We're talking, $200,000, $300,000 based on the unit. And then you get a percentage of that back refunded when you move out. So it could be 80%, it could be 90%. And there's different contract types on when that's refunded. But primarily, as far as this episode, we'll talk about CCRCs are either rental or entrance fee. And I could do a whole episode on the different types of entrance fee models for CCRCs. But those are a lot of times they're owned and operated by nonprofits. Again, they are usually large campuses, and they have different level options as far as the care that you need. But the idea is you move in and you don't have to worry about moving out. And that's really the idea behind a continuum of care, is that when you need more care, it's there on site. You don't have to worry about scrambling to find another community that offers assisted living or they offer memory care. You can always do it on site there. So that alleviates a lot of stress for the families and the residents. So, I guess I'm talking a lot about ALFs, and that's one of the terms that I don't like. First of all, we'll talk about why I say senior living. So you probably heard either senior living or seniors housing. I like the term senior living. They both mean the same thing. I won't correct you if you say either one, but I like to say senior living, and I'll tell you why. Seniors housing was really the first term, and it came out of the term for a specialized real estate class called student housing. So you probably know that commercial real estate is the biggest segments are multifamily, retail, hospitality, industrial, office, and then there's specialized groups that have self-storage, student housing, and then seniors housing or senior living. And I like the term senior living for a couple of reasons. One, I understand how seniors housing came from student housing. But when I think of student housing, I think of short term. I think of 4 to 6 years. You're, at this place that's near the campus that offers these amenities like study rooms and volleyball courts and, activities like that. But it's short term. However, when I say seniors housing or senior living, I like the term senior living because that's more long term. I want it to be a destination. Senior living is still it's really the only real estate class that the majority of residents don't want to move into it. Think about that. The majority of residents do not want to move into senior living. And why is that? It's because they have a concept that it's institutional, that, it's not as nice as their house. So when you say seniors housing, I think of a short-term stay. When I say senior living, I want it to be an enhancement to the end of someone's life, that the end of their their retirement years, to be an enhancement and not just a short-term kind of fix. So that's why I like the term senior living. The same thing about, you'll hear people say, and I cringe, but you hear people say ALF or ALF, assisted living facility. I don't like the term facility, and I'll tell you why. Facility, when I think of facility, I think of a hospital setting with, corridors and hospital beds and cold with a curtain. It's not something that I want to go to. It's something that I have to go to. So it's, again, trying to raise the overall image of senior living starts with some of this terminology. So when you say facility, I cringe because it's not somewhere I want to move into. I like to use the term assisted living residence or assisted living community, because that's really what it is. And that's what the future of this industry is about. It's not about a facility where you're just going to get some care. It's about enhancing your life through yoga, through cooking classes, through engagement with other residents. And that's what the future of the product is. So, I won't correct you if you say ALF or ALF or whatever. However, I will kind of cringe internally because I don't like that term. I love it if everyone can use residence or community, because again, it's about trying to enhance the image. I mean, if you've been into a recently constructed or developed assisted living community, you know how amazing they are. You know that they have movie theaters and amazing dining rooms, open lobbies, and they're just built with so much, so much love and creativity that it's not, your long hallway with, rooms on either side that, with a nursing station. That's just not what the product is. So if we can use the terminology assisted living residence or community, I think that enhances the brand, because ultimately what I want is a resident that, again, the majority of them don't want to move into senior living. I want them to move into senior living. I want them to say, hey, I'm in my house. I'm doing all my own cooking. I got to do these repairs. I mean, sometimes I might go out and play some bridge or bingo, but for the most part, I'm watching TV in my house. So moving into senior living community, I want an upgrade to your life. Unfortunately, studies show that the majority of residents still stay in their unit. And that's got to change, because otherwise, when you're moving from your house to a senior living unit, you're just downsizing in size. There's nothing different. What's, the future of senior living is providing activities, engagement. So it's an upgrade to your life. You're outside of your unit. You're doing, some yoga. You're doing a fitness class. You're doing a cooking demonstration. You're doing a salsa class. You're really engaging. You're going on field trips. So it's not about sitting in your unit and watching TV. It's about being engaged, meeting new people, and overall having an upgrade in your life. So I think a lot of that starts with the terminology. That's why I'll say senior living versus seniors housing. I'll say assisted living residence versus assisted living facility, because my goal is to try to, improve the industry. And a way to do that starts with us and the way that we talk about different things. So that's primarily the different product types. We all have a solid base understanding now. So in future discussions, if I say continuum of care or IL or AL or SNF, you understand what talking about. So talking about the future a little bit, I think to really understand and really, project on what's going to happen in the future, we have to have a solid understanding of our past. So I'd like to take a few minutes just to do a quick history of senior living. Senior living is a specialized class, and we'll talk about this a little bit. I talk with a lot of groups that have a lot of strong experience in commercial real estate. And then a lot of them, they like to, talk about these different verbiages as far as penetration rates and different real estate specific terms. They might have, a lot of insight and a lot of brain power goes into a pro forma. Like, that's all great, but senior living is totally different. And senior living is different because it's so operationally focused. It's the only real estate class ever that you can have the same real estate, the same bricks and mortar, the same location, have a different operator, have completely different results. So when folks come to me and they have all these, crazy spreadsheets of traditional real estate metrics, that's all great. However, senior living is a totally different animal. So that's the first thing, is understanding how operationally focused it is. And we'll go into this in later episodes on what, what an operator goes through on a daily basis and what an operator has as far as culture, because culture is the number one influence in, a management's staffing, their expenses, their overall performance. It comes down to culture, and we'll dive into that in a later episode. But talk a little bit about the history. So senior living really started with nursing homes or skilled nursing facilities. And I always laugh when I hear of that. And that's really what I thought senior living was all about. I always think about Golden Girls, and they would talk to, I forget her name, but they would always threaten to put her in the home, and that's really what the idea of senior living was for me. And that's the first product of senior living was nursing homes. It came from residents not needing to be in a hospital setting, but they still needed that round-the-clock nursing care. So in the 70s, there was a huge push to develop and construct and to open skilled nursing facilities that could provide that intermediate care that you don't need the acute hospital setting, but you definitely couldn't be at home. However, back in kind of in the 80s, it became known or realized that skilled nursing was expensive to have the round-the-clock nursing, that residents, especially later ages in life, they didn't need the total nursing care, but they needed help with their ADLs, with their activities of daily living. So that's when assisted living product really came, and it came out of kind of the same design as a nursing home. If you go to some of the assisted living product that was built in the 80s, it'll look very similar to skilled nursing as far as have different wings coming out from a central nurse's station, and you'll have single story main hallway, units on either side, a lot of them semi-private or companion or just studios, and that's really all it was. And that was the first product of assisted living. Again, it was just taking kind of skilled nursing and putting it into a lower level of care, but there wasn't really any of the amenities that we see today. Those amenities really started in the mid-90s when assisted living started to take off and really form its own. So kind of early, mid, and definitely late 90s, there was a huge boom in assisted living, and that's where we got a lot of the product we see out there. I mean, think of traditional Brookdale or Holiday. A lot of them have a similar kind of cookie cutter design. I can usually drive by and know when it was constructed. But that's, again, where we started getting a lot of the specialized assisted living memories, like your library, like your activity room, your card room, bigger dining rooms, things like that you see today in different assisted living product. You started to see really get developed in the 1990s. Also, the unit sizes became larger. It used to be, okay, we just need a small studio unit for mom. It turned into, well, she wants a larger unit. So there was more 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms being developed to go along with the studio and very limited semi-private. Huge boom in the 90s, late 90s, almost an overbuild, which backed off a little bit. And that's also when independent living started to be known, not as known as assisted, but in the late 90s, there was a lot more independent living mixed with the assisted, and that turned into standalone independent living as well, but very similar design to the assisted living, much larger unit sizes, also usually having a full kitchen versus a kitchenette that you'll find in the assisted living product. But independent living really it had a harder time getting momentum because there was a lot more product knowledge that had to be taken in each individual market. I mean, assisted living, you understand, okay, mom needs help, it's known when someone needs help. Independent living had to be, more penetrated into the market, saying, hey, this is the product type. You can sell your house. You can have these engaged activities. You can have these amazing dining services right on site. You don't have to live in your house. Everything's taken care of. You can, interact and meet new people that share, similar interests as you. But it took more time to get that knowledge out there. So independent living was a slower boom than assisted living, but it did start to take off. And then there was a lot of mix, independent and assisted. So that was pretty much, senior living. It started to refine it. It started to have bigger communities. And then the memory care product came in the late 2000s, 2010 era. And this really started out as a secured wing of assisted living. We started to notice some wandering of early stage dementia. And that's a hazard for the community. So they started out by just kind of securing one of their wings and saying, okay, residents that have this wandering, we'll place them in this wing. But quickly realized that, folks that have the Alzheimer's disease, they need specialized amenities. And that's what started to take place with new construction or conversions, is adding a serving kitchen to bring the food over, adding a central dining / activity lounge area where you can really engage in different activities throughout the day. Also, converting a lot of them to semi-private again because of the price point is so high. There's a lot more semi-private units in memory care. And then in the late kind of 2010s, you see a brand new product of standalone memory care. And we'll talk about this, and I wrote a blog post about it, but there was a huge development boom on standalone memory care. And, there's a lot of reasons why their developers were interested in this. And it's a very volatile product, and we can talk about that in a later episode. But that's really the later stage, was a standalone memory care product that had a pretty big boom there for a number of years. Smaller, usually about 40 units, so smaller, which also adds to the risk profile, but just specialized in dementia care. The whole facility, the whole community is secured, and there's dedicated amenities for dementia. So that's, primarily what it is. And then skilled nursing is the very first product, but since then there's been some new post-acute product that is new. One being, I mentioned before, the TRF, for transitional rehab facility, and that is a skilled nursing that's just dedicated to Medicare, which is primarily short-term stays, higher reimbursement rate, much higher reimbursement rate, but just short-term stays. So kind of specialized just in that, and because of that, it's more of like a like a nice high-end hotel when you visit these. It's completely different than a lot of the skilled nursing facilities you're used to touring or aware of. TRF is usually smaller, so we're talking 30, 40 beds, all private, much more like a hotel than any kind of rehab facility you've been to. Huge physical therapy space too, typically. So that's really the history of senior living. What does the future hold? And there's so much we can discuss on this, and that gets me excited just thinking about it. But there's so much new technology. There's some great new design trends. There's new construction types, modular construction. There's a lot of new operations as far as, and we'll talk about this some, but one of the biggest questions, a couple of big questions, but one of them is staffing. Wages keep going up. These communities are heavily staffed, so that's a huge hit to the bottom line. Well, how do we efficiently staff these communities so we can still maintain a realistic price point to the resident, maintain a profit, obviously, to the owner, but how does that all balance with these rising labor costs? Also, there's a ton of new development right now. Well, each community that's being developed has to be fully staffed. So there's a shortage on qualified staff for a lot of these communities. So that's a big question that's, in the industry right now. Another one is an affordable product. For a while, everyone was putting all, highest quality, all the amenities, the latest and greatest everything, which pushes up the price. Well, senior living is expensive. I mean, if you've toured any of these communities, you know how expensive it is. So what's the affordable product? And there's been a lot of discussion, but that's going to be a huge question for us going forward, is how do we make an affordable product? Is it even lower construction costs? You still have the labor costs that are expensive, right? So what's the balance there? Some states have a Medicaid program. Many do not. Just a handful of states have a Medicaid waiver program for assisted living. So what is the answer for affordable product? I mean, there's tax credit deals and there's things like that, but there's just not a lot of options for affordable senior living. So we'll dive into that in a later episode, but that's a huge question. So that's primarily it for this first show. Man, I am so excited. I've got a lot of big ideas, but I want to hear from you. So feel free to email me. My email is Scott, SCOTT, @srgrowth.com. That's Scott at srgrowth.com. Shoot me an email. Let me know what you like about the show, what you don't like about the show, what you'd like to hear in the future, if you have any kind of topics or anything like that. I mean, I've got a ton of topic ideas. Like I said, I filled out a couple of pages of topic ideas, but some of them are just, how to properly underwrite senior living, Negotiating management contracts, that's a big one. Different terms to know in a management contract. Negotiating purchase and sale agreements, that's a huge one too. There's a lot of specialized terms just for senior living that go into these contracts. Design trends, that's huge. We were going away from a library that's barely used to more of a multi-purpose room that you can convert to, your yoga, to your fitness, and that brings the cost down too. Instead of having this room, this construction cost and air conditioning and whatnot, for a room that's rarely utilized, you have more of a multi-purpose room. So we'll talk about some of the current design trends. Operating culture is huge. So we'll reach out to some of the good, strong regional operators and find out, how they implement their culture and how that impacts the bottom line. Because it is such a big selling point or advantage having the right culture. Why is that? Because turnover is so costly in senior living. I mean, when you have to invest into referral services, you have to invest in training a staff member, and then they leave after a couple of weeks, that's huge to your bottom line. So having the right culture, having employees bought in so that they're coming every day, feeling part of the overall community and culture, and it's not just going there and clocking in and clocking out and having a job. So we'll talk to operators on how they implement their culture and how that impacts their overall, efficiency. We'll talk about market analysis some. Every time, there's a new development or an acquisition, a lot of times people order a market study, but, you get these reports of 200 pages. What really do you need to know? How do you calculate the supply? How do you calculate the demand? How do you calculate the unmet, beds in a primary market area? What's the penetration rate? There's a lot of terms, that we'll go over. We'll also reach out to a lot of different experts in the industry via brokers, via investors, via owners, operators, lenders, attorneys, appraisers. There's so many great people that share a passion, like all of us do on senior living. So, learning from them, growing from them, is going to be a big part of the show going forward. Again, contact me, email me, scott@srgrowth.com with any show ideas or just to say hi. Also, there's a lot of great ways to connect because, again, the Inner Circle is all about collaboration. So the best thing to do is join the LinkedIn group. And to do that, go to the website, srgrowth.com. So if you go to that website, on the top menu, you'll see a menu selection for Inner Circle. Click on that and you'll see a link to all of our social media. The biggest one being the LinkedIn group. You want to join that because there's going to be some fun discussions and some fun topics coming up here. So make sure you join that LinkedIn group. Also, we've got Instagram, we've got Twitter, just to keep you up to date on the latest news, the latest shows, when they're released. Also a way to talk about different topics as well. I'll be sharing some stories on Instagram, things like that. So you want to sign up to all the social media. Social media also is Inner Circle SL. So on Twitter or on Instagram, you can search for that, Inner Circle SL. And definitely, please subscribe to this. I'm be posting different shows basically whenever I can. Like I said, I've got a ton of show topics. I've got a lot of people I want to reach out to and interview. I want to hear a lot of your emails that we can bounce ideas off of each other. So it's all about interactivity. So please subscribe. Also, if you could give a review on whichever platform, iTunes or whatever, that would be super helpful. But overall, tell your colleagues, say, hey, I just listened to this show. You got to check it out. That's a good way to get everyone involved in the Inner Circle. The more people we have, the better this can be. This is all about a community. So please share this with your colleagues. Let them get involved. Let them join the Inner Circle. Email me with any questions or comments. And I'm so excited. I'm looking forward to future shows and to meeting you guys and just collaborating and bringing us to the next level. So that's it. That's the first show. Keep a lookout for new episodes coming out. I'll send out an email blast as well as, hit the social media. But overall, thanks so much for being part of the Inner Circle. Now go out there and make a difference.
We appreciate you participating in the Inner Circle of Senior Living. Now, it's your turn to help spread the message. Be sure to share your questions and comments with the Inner Circle community and discuss the different topics with your friends and colleagues. Until next time, thanks for joining the Inner Circle of Senior Living.